Hey guys, Ronan Will. Today we are going to be painting the Mandalorian Super Commandos for Star Wars Shatterpoint. So this first part, I basically put it in here just to show you why my Mandalorian looked the way it did. For the actual painting, I screwed up and I wanted to test basically dark tone or toning it before putting any paint on, so that's what I was testing, and you can see how annoyed I am. I'm just like doing heavy brush strokes. Basically I have to go over the entire body again with the actual paint, just so I can then dark tone it again to get the coloring that I wanted. Learning step for me. I very much regret my decision because this ended up making the episode so much longer. You know how the painting of the other Mandalorians for Clan Catrice, Krez, I don't know. That group only took about, well, on camera it only took about 15 to 20 minutes. This takes about double time, and that's even in real life. It took almost twice as long because I had to redo this and wait for the dark tone to dry. Yeah, I was not happy. So right now I'm using actually a pure red, just to get everything boxed out, and then I actually, after doing the dark toning, I will turn around and use crimson red or chaotic red instead to give it that nice Darth Maul-ish army unit colors. I also change up a couple of pieces on our commando here. But I'll talk about that as we get to them. So, Mandalorian Super Commandos. These guys are obviously from Shatterpoint. They're Darth Maul's units that are like representing his part of the army. They are in, just like the regular Mandalorians, the Clan Catrice. They are a supporting unit. Or troopers, if you will, and they come in a set of two, one male, one female. Which, if you remember previously, the Clan Catrice was the male version, so I figured I'd do the female version. They also switch jetpacks that are active, so like the female in Clan Catrice uses the backpack where this one, the male, is using the jetpack. Something I do find interesting, though, on the card art, the female character has the two blasters out, and the male is using the flamethrower. In the models, it's actually reversed. She's using the flamethrower, and he's using the two blasters. I just realized also that the leg armor coverings, I don't know what you want to call those. I feel like they're more fabric than actual like armor. But the things that I painted red that are on her thighs in the card art are actually black. I'm realizing that there's a lot more black on these guys than I initially thought. Or gunmetal for that matter. So these guys are not going to be following the card art that much. Sorry if that's what you guys were hoping for. I don't feel like any of my guys have really turned out like the card art. Maybe the super battle droids, but that's about it. Anyway, so they have 4 skills. Their keywords are Mandalorian, Shadow Collective, Super Commandos, and Trooper. They actually have a little bit more durability than the Clan Kreese, which are 8 instead of 7. And they also, though, have only 2 stamina. So their skills, just like their brothers in arms, they have the jetpack force ability, which gives them ascend. They have the Mandalorians are stronger together skill, which after this unit makes a move action, it may use this ability. If a character in this unit is within range 2 of another allied Mandalorian, this unit immediately makes a focus action. So very synergetic with each other. They want to be close to each other and to whatever allied Mandalorians you can be working with here. Then these are 2 new skills that Clan Kreese didn't have. They have No Mercy, which when an enemy character that is engaged with one or more characters in this unit advances or pushes, I think that's push, after the move is resolved, the moving character's unit suffers 2 damage if the moving character is no longer engaged with one or more characters in this unit. So basically, if you're in melee range and one of the guys, like, I think, who is it, Obi-Wan or somebody, has the ability to like move after attacking, if they do that, they take 2 damage for not being engaged with these guys anymore. They also have victory or death. Characters in this unit have impact 1. Okay, so now I'm going with Necromancer Cloak here, which, if you remember the last unit, the other Mandalorians, I went with the darkest color their outfit is going to be, and then I lightened it up after that. Same basic principle here. Alright, so why do I feel like this is not theirs? No, this is the Commanders. Sorry, I pulled up their regular car, their combat tree, but it ended up it was Gar Saxon, which is their commander, not them. Let me see if I can actually get their combat tree up. Give me 1 second, guys. While I'm doing this, it's just a quick touch up. You see that I'm not, at this point I was annoyed because I had painted all these guys. Hold on 1 sec. Mandalorian Super Commando Shatterpoint cards. There we go. And if I could spell, it would be good. I'm dumb. That's weird. I can't seem to find their actual combat cards. Like, let me try specifying their combat tree card. Nope. But they appeared in quite a few different games, including what game is this? This was, well, they appeared in Legion, this looks like, and of course they're appearing in the new Shatterpoint. They also were from the Force and Destiny, the card game that they had before this. Odd, I can't seem to find it. Oh well. If I had to guess, they're very similar to their brethren from the other side. So yeah, Mandalorian. So these guys, just like Clan Kreese also goes by Death Watch or the Night Owls. These guys go by Mandalorian Traditionalists or the Mandalorian Super Commandos, whatever you would like to call them. They were they were part of Death Watch, and then they kind of split off from Death Watch when Darth Maul basically took over Death Watch from them and started developing it into a crime syndicate known as the Shadow Collective during the Clone Wars. Let's see. So, of course, Gar Saxton was the original leader of their group. Then Maul basically fought him for leadership and took over. They had a couple of other leaders, but in the Shatterpoint series, Maul is essentially their leader, and Gar Saxton is their second in command, or their commander, not commandos. Oh, speaking is hard today, guys. Basically, the whole thing is it results in a civil war between these guys and Clan Kreese's Night Owls, which results in Maul basically taking over Mandalore and Ahsoka having to lead a specialized mission during the period of Order 66 to basically take back over Mandalore from Darth Maul. So one thing you'll notice here is I really do not use a lot of gunmetal at all on these guys. I kind of rectify that as we go in the highlights and everything, but for now, that's basically what's going to happen. Is I'm using the Necromancer cloak and pure red just to get a base coat on, and then once that's done, I actually end up going and finalizing everything with. Here's the gunmetal, and again, not very much gunmetal gets used on her. In fact, it's primarily just the highest points. So this is the other spot that I differentiated from the character concept art. The one that they had were silver gauntlets with red on the tips, on the raised fins on it. This, I kind of reversed it. I'm going with red gauntlets and silver on the raised aspects of it. Alright, so now, after very little, and you'll see I take some highlighting, some uniform gray, just to get those straps colored and the edges of the, again, I guess it's thigh armor. I would still consider that more like a fabric, it almost looks like, but I guess the straps are holding it in place, so therefore it would be actual like metal pieces or hardened pieces. I don't know, the way it wraps around, it really does look like a cloak to me, like one of those half skirts, I guess. I don't even know what you would call it. You see it in the Clone Wars. Rex has it. He's basically got like his armor and then this cloak that goes around the lower half of his body. Looks very cool. Practical, not really. I guess maybe it's got some fabric weave or something in it that prevents it, that protects them. Yeah, I'm just using this. There's a design on their hip plates, which I don't even know what the design really is. I just kind of took some of the gray to highlight it, and then I realized as I'm doing that it's more than just a little piece here and there. It's like a whole design. So I end up in the highlighting, I actually make the change and clean that up really nice. But yeah, I don't really know what some of these spots are, and the concept art, because they're so, I mean, let's face it, they're very one-dimensional. You can't see the entire body, so, which is nice. It's dramatic. It's dynamic. But in truth, you can't really see too much, so it doesn't help when you're trying to do stuff like this. So, last thing I do, of course, is get that blaster painted finally. And then it will be on to the dark tone, because of course I have to redo the dark tone. I have to, honestly, I think I have to be more patient with when I'm painting. That's, like I said, that took me maybe about an hour, just because, or not an hour, maybe 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes. This is just some strong tone that I'm just painting over the entire body again, to get rid of basically the mistake that I used the red toner on first. I think if I do it again, I would do the entire paint job and then do the red toner on her instead. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still not used to where the camera ended up sitting on this episode either. It was literally like 2 inches from the table itself. I really need to do something else with that. So now that she's dark toned, we are going to move on to the highlight layer. Highlight layer, like I said, is going to start with some, I just painted this morning, and you would have thought that I would have remembered I started with the Necro Cloak. I didn't. I thought I started with the Crimson, the Chaotic Red, which, honestly, it makes sense to start with the stuff that's further down. The problem I have with these guys, and it's any characters that have, like, black under armor or dark under armor like this, it's very hard to pick out details, which is why I kind of wish I would have done the red toner or even a blue toner on the fabric, because then you can definitely see the difference between the folds and all of that. Where, since we're using black on black, it's a little too hard to see. But so I'm going through and I'm just trying to be very gentle, touching just the edges of, all the highest raised edges of the model. I don't want to go around and put too much on any of these, but what I do want to do is make sure that you can basically see that it's all coated in this, it's getting coated again in the base color that we started in. And usually this means, in theory, that it will be very bright and vibrant when you go to have those contrasts, like on the last Mandalorian group we did. Those blues mixed with the dark tone and the highlights really made it look very nice, very bright, very energetic. Because I'm using darker colors, because something dark side, everything kind of blends. And it's not as, in my opinion, it's not as interesting to look at these guys as it is the Republic ones. But that could also have just been because I designed I drew these, I painted these with kind of just a simple color scheme. So, once I finish up with basically the touch-ups on the gray like this, I end up going back and I start brightening up those grays with a mixture of the Necro shade, why do I always say Necro shade? Necromancer cloak and a little bit of the my other grays, which is uniform gray, or I had another dark gray. I think it's stone gray would be the other one. So, something to note also with these models, I don't know why they have less folds on their under clothing as the Clan Kreese guys did. Clan Kreese, it was like he was wearing a massive shirt billowing in the wind, where this is more like form-fitting, so you don't get those nice contrasting edges where you get some nice deep divots and dips. But yeah, so I'm just, like I said, I'm just touching up, and again, I didn't want to base these guys before I was ready, so that's the uniform gray, which I mixed in with the Necromancer cloak to get kind of like a mid-ground. If you remember with Clan Kreese, you'll remember that I did that with deep blue and like the crystallish blue to give the same effect there. And it's just a good way to like mix it to like, so you're not just doing these extreme, I guess what it would be, what are those called? It's cell shading, where you don't really have a mid-tone, you have like the highest high and the lowest low next to each other of the same color, and it gives it this weird like dynamic look. Like, it's very cartoony, which I enjoy, but doing it this way will allow it to be a little less jarring, but you really don't notice it until that final gray goes on there. So, which you'll see in a few moments. This also was such a long video to record. We have a full, like, just under 45 minutes compared to the last one, which, again, yes, the recording got a little screwy, but it still didn't take me that long for the Clan Kreese versus these guys. And I will say a little bit had to do with the dark toning a second time on it. But I don't know. I feel like this one, I feel like the more dynamic poses also mess with the speed of painting, because you have to be a lot more cautious on how the guy is sitting versus someone who's just standing, let's say, in a gunslinger pose where all his arms are out, he's got a nice wide stance. You're not going to be risking accidentally painting onto an area as easily. So this is the final highlight I just took those grays, and if you remember from the last episode, I kind of put it on the ground so I could see from a top view, like you guys see now, where all those bright grays are going to be. So, and I still add a little bit of highlight, like these light grays on the edges, but it's mostly on the tops. And that will do it for that part. So next, this should be the chaotic red. I go over the shoes. So just something to like try and clean it up. There we go. Good thing I don't have big fingers and they're not in the way at all. Basically, I'm now doing the chaotic red over the red, over the pure red, I should say. And that will allow us to have that nice pop of color once I get highlighting after the touch-ups here. So I have to redo all of this now in chaotic red, which if I would have just done it in chaotic red, it would have saved me a lot of time. But I don't know, at first I wanted to do like brighter colors, but we'll see. I mean, you'll see. I already finished this, Scotty. Let's see. Let's take a look at some of their information here from the Star Wars series. Joining the Imperial Era in the Night Sister lair, Maul amassed an entire collection of memorabilia from his time during the Clone Wars, which includes several Mandalorian Super Commando helmets. I mean, yeah. They don't really exist past the Clone Wars era. Well, I mean, it makes sense because they were kind of overthrown. Gar Saxton, however, exists even in the Rebels TV series, which he ends up fighting Sabine for the right to rule Mandalore, and then it's a whole big thing. The Super Commanders continued to utilize Mandalorian Beskar armor during their service under Maul. However, they modified its appearance to reflect their alliance to the... Well, it says to the Sith Lord. He's no longer a Sith Lord by that point. In addition to painting their armor in red and black, some commandos sought to better resemble their Night Brother leader by fashioning horns on their helmets, which, once we get to Gar Saxton's helmet, you'll see that he does. His helmet has the Mandalorian horn, the Zebraki style horns. Yeah, this is like a relatively short-lived unit in Star Wars, which kind of makes it interesting that they got their own, they got recognized in the actual Shatterpoint game. So I wouldn't mind if they brought them back for some other things here and there. I don't know, but they kind of reference that that these guys eventually, they got wiped out, and then they became kind of part of the traditional Mandalorians, like how in the Mandalorian TV show, he's part of that group / Death Watch, whatever you want to call it. Not much else on these guys. Like I said, they only showed up in a few episodes. Their first time that they were separated as into these units were when Darth Maul went to the Zanbar, the moon that they were based on, and ended up overthrowing them then. So yeah, again, General Grievous also kind of attacked them. These guys kind of got the raw end of the stick. They were part of Death Watch, but they were like their own faction within Death Watch that ended up getting expelled. They got attacked by Darth Maul and taken over. They got attacked by General Grievous and forced away. They were attacked by the Republic, by Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, like literally an entire like who's who of attackers here. And then eventually, they get more or less wiped out by Ahsoka's special forces for the Outer Rim sieges, is what they're calling it here. So, I'm just about finished on the armor, the base coats for the armor here. I'm using now a mixture of pure red and chaotic red to bring out the brightness. I do like how the armor, cloak, whatever, again, I don't know what you want to call it. The thigh armor is what I'm going to go with from now on. The thigh armor on this character turned out with the different color reds instead of the blacks. I felt like these were just so dark. Like, their character designs are so hard to see any detailing or anything that you want to do with them. So so I added more red to their color palettes than I probably should have. But hey, that's the nice thing about painting miniatures. You kind of can do what you would like with them. At least with the generic guys. It's going to be a little hard to argue why I changed the paint scheme of like Gar Saxon or somebody. Somebody everybody knows. But so this is just getting some highlights on the chest plates. I basically avoid doing too much with the lower half of the body, because the lower half, like the stomach area, because a lot of that is blocked by the upper chest plate as well as like the head. And then after I finish with this, I end up just going with some pure red just for the very tips of the armor set, but not before touching up the helmet a little bit on the top. So there we go. That's the very top. That's going to be a mixture of pure red and chaotic red again. I will say that these guys are a little bit more dynamic, or like a little bit more interesting than just having silver and silver armor. But if I could find a way to like, I kind of should have seen if there was a way to combine the silver armor and the this bright crimson red. It's just okay. So this is me fumbling with the model a whole bunch, but no, this is where I end up taking the highest points of the metallic. And technically, if I wanted, I could have even gone further than this and put some white in with it to give it a very high gloss, like reflective surface. I didn't really want to do it too much because, in my opinion, there's not too many things in the Star Wars universe that is that reflective. Star Wars universe seems to have a lot more like lived in, like realistic situation. It's not Star Trek where it's like just super clean, everything is brand new and experimental type deal. This is a universe that has literally been through hundreds of thousands of wars. Again, you saw at the end there, I was just kind of poking and prodding some of that red to try and pull that extra tone, you know, the extra brightness off, just to try and make it less harsh of a reflective surface, if you will. From this point, I take a little bit of that was pure black, and I'm going to go over the edging here. So where the concept art was mostly grayish black and red on the edges, I reversed it. So this is going to be mostly black, mostly red with black on the edging. I also end up using this black for the straps. I didn't really care for the gray because, again, it was just so much gray. These characters are so minimalistic as far as color schemes, color palettes. Literally, it's black, red, and gray. I mean, I guess I shouldn't complain too much. The heroes, the other Mandalorians are blue, silver, and gray. So Mandalorians really like simple color palettes, I guess. So something to note with this guy, the thigh armor is raised up a little bit off of the thigh, so you get these weird little gaps that you can see. If you're not being careful, you end up having to like paint into the gap itself, and that can't be helped. It's just because you have to assemble the model in that. Right, and there is our straps being darkened up. Again, the gray was okay, but I probably could have gone with like a leather instead. But I also didn't want to do leather because I did leather on the clan crease, and I really didn't want to do, have them too similar. Not like you're going to make the mistake and think that these guys are clan crease. I swear that's like the 10th time I dropped this guy. But just to try and keep them as different as possible. Alright, but we're getting towards the end here, guys. We just need to finish up these boots. I don't know why I painted the bottoms like that, because there's going to be glued down and you'll never see those bottoms again. And then again, just finishing up any of that gapping and trying to touch up those sections. And once this is all done, the last, very, very last thing that I end up doing is working on that backpack, that jetpack that she's got on. which I think it's funny. It's the only jetpack with that design. It's so unique, and I kind of like the simplicity of it. But all the other guys are using kind of like the standard Jango Fett backpack jetpack. So this is just some touch-ups. Putting some gray around the faceplate. And then I'm adding some more detail to the side design hip pack things. I don't really know what they are. To me, they just look like some weird design that they decided to include on it. And finally, nope, I'm retouching that because I am so obsessed with trying to get it to at least pop a little bit. And I will admit, it's a nice design. I just don't know why. Okay, so last but not least, backpack time. Oh, nope, never mind. Chrome on the blaster, chrome on everything. I also found that my hand was very unsteady during this whole process, so I was having some trouble keeping everything like soft and not accidentally getting it on other things. Alright, so this is where I decide I'm going to change up the backpack a little bit. I'm going to use mostly chrome on it, and I'm going to use the red as accents more. Again, I don't think it doesn't have like the outer thruster things that the other jetpacks do. So I don't know if it's really a jetpack or maybe just a life support pack. I don't really know, and it doesn't really talk about it too much in the, in lore. So I went over this with some of I've mixed some black and gunmetal together to give it that darker tone. And that's about it, guys. Yeah. I'm gonna just fill in the little key mask piece so it actually looks more differentiated. And she had a few markings on the top, which I tried to simulate. I don't know if it worked too well, but that's it. Or not. Oh, I just cleaned it up a little bit more to really emphasize the edges there. All right. At this point, I was just like, what else can I touch up? Because I felt like it wasn't ready to be finished yet. So I just touched up the very tops there. And that, my friends, will do it for her after I do some more coloring. Man, I forgot all about that. They have little like red or yellow markers on their shoulder, like just under their shoulder pauldrons. Don't really know why. Again, it gives it that nice pop of color. And there we go. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And this camera is getting worse and worse by the day, I swear. So that's this one, and then the male is right here. There we go. I played with the jetpack stuff again a lot. I like how he turned out a little bit more than the female. But what can you do? Anyway, guys, next time we might do something different. Till then, Ronan will. Later.